Hello everybody, this is Midweek Thought for the day for this week, and some of you know we are going to be following through in Nick Page's book The Wrong Messiah. To begin with, I only have it on my Kindle, so I'm not going to hold that up just now. I have ordered a paper copy to come as well. I think that will be useful for me. But so we're following through the kind of bit of Nazareth when Jesus lived in Nazareth. So it was quite a long time that Jesus was in Nazareth, and I've been challenged to rethink some of the timings about what that means, and Nick has worked really hard on this in the book. It's Nick Page, it's The Wrong Messiah. So Nick's thinking is that after Joseph and Mary left Bethlehem, they probably didn't go very far into Egypt. It may well have only been 35 or 40 miles. Then they go to present Jesus at the temple. Herod dies in those few weeks. That would just have been a few weeks that they were away in Egypt. Herod dies, they go to Jerusalem, and certainly that seems to be what's supported in Luke, because we have the story of Candlemas, of the presentation at Christ in the temple, and then the next bit just says, when they had finished everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favour of God was upon him. The whole of that area was in turmoil after Herod's death, and there were his three sons inherited the throne, and there were all sorts of things which went on. There were sort of terrors, there was kind of things that which are effectively civil war. So it was that kind of really difficult situation from really from when they arrived back in Nazareth after Herod died. It was unstable all of Jesus's childhood and adolescence, and right on through his ministry we see how unstable it was. People were part of an oppressed nation, and whilst we have the kind of what have the Romans ever done for us arguments, and we think about all the things that they do have, but there is reported in Josephus at that time an argument between three Jewish leaders, three rabbis. One is standing up a bit for the Romans, and the other ones are complaining that they all the infrastructure and everything that is provided is only to help the taxation. Taxation was a real burden, so they would have the people had the Roman taxation, and they also had to pay their temple taxes and their offerings to more local situations. So there was a real difficult burden of poverty, and one bad harvest could leave a family spiralling downwards. Anyway, the story from Josephus is that these three rabbis were taken away and crucified, even the one who had been speaking up for the Romans. So it was a very turbulent time, a very, very difficult time in which Jesus grew up. But the thing which really most struck me, and I think I have read before but I haven't really taken it in, is about the Greek word which is used to describe Jesus's profession, his trade. So we have these images of Joseph as a carpenter, and sort of lovely carpenter shops and making lovely things from wood, whereas actually the Greek is tekton, and that's much more like builder. And Nick Page points out that there wasn't actually all that much wood, and so to be a carpenter you would make practical things from wood, but wood was pretty scarce, so only really important things would be made locally from wood. And someone who worked at tekton was not just a carpenter but a builder as well. And then Nick Page looks at the stories which have Jesus tells, and I think when we think about it, we think about the stories that Jesus tells as a carpenter. So don't take the speck of sawdust out of someone else's eye when you have a plank in yours. That's a good carpenter analogy. But there are actually quite a lot more builder stories. We think about Jesus talking about himself as a cornerstone. Anyway, I chose my favourite builder story that Jesus told, but I have had some thoughts about this, having read Nick Page's stories about Jesus in Nazareth. Some of you already will know what this story is. It's Matthew 7, beginning at verse 24. Everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. Now when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as their scribes. So I love this passage, but the imagery that I've always had in my head associated with this passage is that of building on rock or building on a beach. And I have been struck, thinking about Jesus as a builder, that is probably not what Jesus is saying at all. If we think about the area in which Jesus was building, there's some evidence that Jesus as a builder and his family may well have gone from Nazareth to the bigger Hellenistic town that was being built, really a city being built, just a few miles away, 3 miles away from where they lived in Nazareth. And so they would have been involved, or probably were involved, in building this big city. Now, I have read that before, but I'd forgotten about it, really. But it ties in and brings a poignancy to this story that Jesus is saying, when you remember that Jesus has probably built a house or 2 or 3 or 4 or more, and actually maybe they were hillside houses or houses like that, houses which in a big storm would actually not be swept away by the sea, which is the image which I have always had, I guess, me coming from an island nation, and the sea being very kind of pertinent to a lot of the UK, but being maybe more to do with houses that are built on a hillside where the storm and the rain could wash away the foundations more simply, more easily, if there was a landslide or something like that. And that has been a bit of a revelation to me. Why did I want to choose this story at the present time? Partly because we really do feel like we are in a storm. We feel that there are all sorts of things going on around us, and we can feel that we are being battered. It's difficult. There's a kind of attrition. I've used attrition as a word a lot in 2020. I think I'm going to carry on using the phrase emotional attrition quite a lot in 2021 as well. We feel that we are in a storm, and we have to make sure that we are built on the foundation of Jesus and his teachings. And then however rough the storm, we won't be swept away like the house built on sand. There are all sorts of fantastic children's songs about this. I am not going to sing them to you now. They bring a sort of important message, but actually Jesus knew about building houses, and he knew how to build them well. And we build our lives with him as the foundation, and they will be able to withstand whatever storm we find ourselves in. So, Jesus, not a carpenter, but actually a builder. Let's have a think about that this week. I'll see you either on Sunday or next week for some more thoughts for the day. Okay, thank you everyone. Bye.